It's the last chapter. Can you believe it? We're done with our first novel for the year. Let me get started. Chapter 18. After school on Wednesday, Ben's heading into the kitchen for his snack when the phone rings. He grabs the receiver before his sister can get there. No fair, she says. You always get it first. He holds his hand over the mouthpiece for a second. So, life's not fair. I hate it when you say that, Agatha shouts. She dashes out the back door and slams it behind her. Ben turns back to the phone. Someone is chuckling. Ben? A voice says. Yes? It's Mrs. Tibbets. Is your mother there? I'd like to speak to her. Ben hesitates. Okay. It's nothing bad, Ben. I just need to talk with her for a minute. Ben hands the receiver to his mom, who says hi to Mrs. Tibbets. He doesn't know what to make of it when, after a minute of listening, she starts laughing. I see, she says, looking over at Ben. All right. She hangs up and announces Mrs. Tibbets is picking you up in about 15 minutes. For what? She'll tell you. But, Mom, I'm sorry, you'll just have to wait. Ben tries to wheedle it out of her, but when he sees it's no use, he goes outside to wait. A long half hour later, Mrs. Tibbet's station wagon pulls into the driveway. She leans over and opens the door. Hi, Ben says as he hops in. Hello, Ben. Mrs. Tibbets backs out of the driveway and heads down the street. Ben waits for her to say something, but she keeps her eyes on the road and her mouth shut. Where are we going? He finally asks. To my house, she says. When they round the last corner, Ben sees Tabitha Turner standing beside her car in the driveway. Someone Ben hasn't seen before is next to her. Hello, Ben, Mrs. Turner says as he and Mrs. Tibbets get out of the car. Hi, he says. He looks from person to person, trying to get a sense of what this is all about. I asked Gloria if she thought you'd like to come over. We've just been talking to Mr. Shelby here. He's with the local land trust. Ben opens his mouth, then closes it again. No one says anything for a minute. They're all looking at each other, trying to figure out who should speak first. I've decided to sell most of the property to the land trust, Tabitha finally says. I'm holding on to a 2-acre plot on the other side of the vernal pool where we may put up a few houses. Ben nods, still too stunned to speak. The Spadefoots will be all right. I thought you should know. Ben looks at Mrs. Tibbets, then back at Mrs. Turner. You changed your mind? Ben says. Mrs. Turner nods her head. Yes, someone made me change my mind. Ben's face breaks into a huge grin. That's great. That's really great, he says. Thanks. Thank you so much. You're welcome, Mrs. Turner says. No, I mean, really, thanks. And I mean, you're really welcome. Mrs. Turner gets in her car, starts the motor, then rolls down the window. One more thing, Ben. If you see the overtoad, thank her for me. Okay, says Ben. Maybe someone should name the trail by the pool the Overtoad Trail, Mrs. Tibbets says. Mrs. Turner looks at her sister-in-law and manages a smile. That's a good idea, she says. The land trust man shakes Mrs. Tibbets' hand and gets in the passenger side of Mrs. Turner's car. Ben and Mrs. Tibbets wave as the car pulls away. Without a word, like they speak the same language, Mrs. Tibbets and Ben walk around the garage and head toward the woods. Ben feels his feet connect with the ground like he's part of it and it's part of him. As they enter the trees, a breeze pushes the branches back and forth, showing the silvery underside of the leaves. They come closer and closer to the place where the vernal pool was and will be again. Suddenly, Mrs. Tibbets draws in a breath and stops. Oh my gosh, she whispers, holding an arm out in front of Ben. What is it? He whispers. Look, just look. She points to the path ahead. Ben looks where she's pointing, and the hair raises on his arms. It's a rattlesnake crossing the path about 10 feet in front. 10 feet in front of them, sliding quietly over the dirt and leaves. Another one follows it. Ben and Mrs. Tibbets watch them until they disappear into the undergrowth. I don't believe it, Mrs. Tibbets murmurs. I just don't believe it. They both stand there for a moment, barely breathing. They're surrounded by the small sounds of the woods. Far off in the distance, they can hear a car motor. Finally, Mrs. Tibbets breaks the silence. Well, she says, I guess we're just going to have to be a little more careful around here from now on. It seems we have some new neighbors. I hope they feel at home, Ben says. I hope you do too, Ben, Mrs. Tibbets says. I do, he says. And he does, right at home. The end. Can you believe it? We're done. How did you feel about it? Give it a rating 1 through 10. 1, it wasn't very good, or 10, it was one of the best books you've ever read. If I'm honest, it's one of the best books I ever read. I give it a 10. The only thing I don't like about it is that they use the word poisonous instead of venomous for the snakes. Minor detail though, right? So since we're done and it was a short chapter, I have a few activities that we're going to do and a few videos that we're going to watch. So what I want you to think about as we move through the next 20 minutes or so is why was it was so important to Ben and Mrs. Tibbets to save that vernal pool, but in the grand scheme of things, why was it important for that pool to be saved no matter who did it? And so I'm going to play a few videos for you. We'll do a video and then do some vocabulary and then do a video and then do a task and then do a video and then do a task. But I just kind of want to give you some help, give you some ideas of what is so important about these vernal pools that it was such a big deal to try to save them. All right. So keep that in mind as we're watching these. We're going to start with this one. It's called Vernal Pool Chronicles. What is a vernal pool? I watched it and I really loved it, but I'm kind of a science nerd, so hopefully you will love it as well. Let's make it big and hopefully, is it going to work? Uh-oh. All right, I guess we'll just have to do it.
It's our first episode of Vernal Pool Chronicles. We want to show you what vernal pools are.
Uh-oh.
And how they are different from other freshwater wetlands that you might encounter here in New England. Wetlands refer to ecosystems where the soil is saturated with water for all or some significant part of the year. Some wetlands are temporary or seasonal, while others have standing water for very long periods of time. These are considered to be perennial. Ponds and lakes, for example, are perennial wetlands that are common in New England. So are many streams and rivers, like the Pemigewasset River in New Hampshire, the Neponset River in Massachusetts, or the Woonasquatucket River in Rhode Island. Wetlands typically have distinctive vegetation that is adapted to the wet soil conditions, such as these cattails and these pond lilies. Wetlands all...
So vegetation, I want to stop there. Vegetation just means plants in that area.
Also have distinctive animals, such as waterfowl, turtles and other reptiles, amphibians, and fish. Swamps are wetlands that are dominated by trees. This stand of Atlantic white cedar, found along the boardwalk to Ponkapog Bog in the Blue Hills Reservation, is an example of a swamp. There is usually plenty of sphagnum moss in most swamps, often growing in clumps called hummocks. The Atlantic white cedar and the red maple are two of the most common trees found in swamps.
We have red maple.
Marshes are dominated by grasses, such as this cattail marsh, and the salt marshes found along the Atlantic coastline. Bogs are common in the Northeast. A bog is a wetland that accumulates peat from the growth of sphagnum moss. Bogs are acidic environments and low in nutrients. One feature of many bogs is the presence of carnivorous plants, such as the sundew, the pitcher plant, and the bladderwort.
Carnivorous plants means that the plants actually eat meat, but the meat is almost always bugs. This is the important part.
A vernal pool is a type of seasonal wetland. It is a depression in the land that fills up with water for at least 2 to 3 months of the year and dries out periodically. The length of the time that the pool holds water is called the hydro period.
Most vernal pools contain water for just a few months during the winter and spring, and then dry out by the middle to the end of summer. Some pools, however, are considered semi-permanent, having water for a few years before going through a dry period. Vernal pools can be found in a variety of locations and habitats in the northeastern United States. Many are found in forested areas, but others can be found in floodplains, old quarries, and even utility easements for power lines and natural gas pipelines. Vernal pools come in a variety of sizes. Some are just a few hundred square feet in area, while others might be as large or larger than an athletic field. These seasonal wetlands are usually shallow, averaging about 3 to 4 feet in depth, although some can reach depths of 10 feet or more. Some vernal pools are exposed to sunlight, and this allows for plant growth inside the pool. These are called open canopy pools. Other vernal pools are heavily shaded from the surrounding forest, and few plants can grow in the pool. These are called closed canopy pools.
Some species will only live or breed in vernal pools. These are called obligate vernal pool species. In New England, some obligate vernal pool species are fairy shrimp, wood frogs, spotted salamanders, blue spotted salamanders, Jefferson salamanders, and marbled salamanders.
One group you won't find in a vernal pool are the fish. Because vernal pools dry out periodically, fish populations are not supported.
Obligate vernal pool species are adapted to periods of dryness. Take the fairy shrimp, for example. They produce eggs that can survive on a dry vernal pool bottom until it fills with water again. The eggs will only hatch when the water conditions are right for survival. Do you see these fallen tree leaves? These are the main source of food and energy for vernal pool organisms. When they fall in the autumn, the dead leaves drop to the bottom of the pool where they become detritus. Caddisflies, isopods, and other species shred the leaves into smaller sized pieces that other organisms can eat to obtain energy.
Wood frog tadpoles, fairy shrimp, and a variety of insect scavengers eat the smaller pieces of detritus that shredders leave behind. These, in turn, are eaten by predatory species, including insects, spiders, amphibians, reptiles, and birds. So let's review. A vernal pool is a seasonal wetland that fills with water for at least 2 to 3 months. It dries out periodically. It has no fish populations, and it usually supports obligate species. Vernal pools are a special part of the New England landscape. We hope this program will help you to appreciate these habitats and the species that use them. Join us next time for another episode, and thanks for watching.
All right, so I can go now to, I made an ELA Jamboard, and I have quite a few slides on them. It looks like my internet is being a little slow, so my apologies. But I would like to do some vocabulary. This book is so long that we have had a harder time doing the vocabulary. So I would like to start with the word wheedle. And it sounds weird, but say it, wheedle, right? So I am going to pull it up for you. It's on page 215. I'm going to pull it up for you here. And I would like you to read the sentence to yourself. I just made it smaller so I can see the page size. I'd like you to read it to yourself, and then we're going to do a word web that will talk about, that will express it for us in different ways. So 215 is the full page right there. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Move myself over here, and wheedle. All right, first one to find it wins, and it is there. Okay, I see it. It is in this paragraph here. It says, Ben tries to wheedle it out of her, but when he sees it's no use, he goes outside to wait. So he's waiting for Mrs. Tibbets to come to the house, and he's trying to wheedle something out of his mom. So what I'd like to do, and I'm going to end up doing it all by myself because this is the recorded lesson, but I'm going to add some words that mean the same as wheedle to this web. So when it says he tries to wheedle it out of her, he tries to get it out of her. I could also say receive. Make sure I spell that right. I could say take. I could say learn. I could say educate. I could say he tries to push it out of his mom. He tries to convince her to tell him. He tries to, what other words could we use here? He tries to wheedle it out of her. He tries to convince her to tell him something. He tries to persuade. He wants to get this information out of her, or trick her maybe into telling. Those would all work. And I'm going to stop right there. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to switch over to the pen, and I'm going to draw a line to all of these. So all of these could mean the same thing as wheedle. Now, something that we haven't, excuse me, I burped. Something that we haven't done is we haven't done any opposites. Now, when we do an opposite word, or sometimes, as you kids are thinking, you might accidentally say an opposite word. I like to make a little box of opposite words. I don't want a circle. I want a box. Can I make a box? Can I make a box? Can I make a box? Doesn't look like it. So I'll just draw a box. I like to make a box and put the opposites in it, because then we know that they don't really fit, but they do still have meaning to the word, because it helps us understand what it is not. So I'm going to put some opposite words in here. He tries to wheedle it out of her. Well, he isn't telling her. You know what's another one? Saying. I didn't think about that one. Saying. Another opposite would be keeping a secret. And one more opposite might be, speak, right? Those could all be opposites. Or I suppose not speak, it would be quiet. Those are all opposites. Now we could go on and on, but I've got 8 slides here, and this is just the first slide. Now, something else I also want to do is I want to determine what kind of word this is. Is it a noun, an adjective, a verb, a pronoun, an adverb? These are all things that I will help you with through this lesson, but that I'd like you to get very familiar with through 5th grade. So to wheedle, she does something. When you do something, that's an action word, and an action word is a verb. So I'm going to make that nice and big right there. Perfect. I wish I could change the color of the font on here, but I cannot, so that's okay. And then something else we haven't done yet is I like to create other words that are similar. So we have wheedle, so we could have different tenses. So tenses mean past tense, present tense, future tense. So we could have wheedling, we could have wheedled, we could have wheedles. Sounds weird if you say it over and over again. And I think that's probably it. If you can think of some more, you can always add it to your assignment. So we have more ways that you can write it. And then one other thing I want to do is I would like to put it in a sentence. Now, I'm going to try to put the original word in a sentence. If you use one of the other tenses, wheedling, wheedled, or wheedles, I'm okay with that. I think you'll be fine. So I'm going to use it in a sentence that is not the same sentence as the that the text gave us. So I'm going to use myself as a subject, I, and I'm going to use it's Ben and his mom, so I'm going to try not to use my mom. I'm going to use my teacher. I tried to wheedle some of the test answers out of my teacher. Now, I've had people do that before, but that would be a great use of the sentence. So you're going to be asked in your assignment today to make a sentence using some of these words. Now, if you were at the live lesson and we came up with other surrounding words, that's great. If this is your first exposure or this is your first time seeing this word, that's also great. But it is a verb and it means to get something out of somebody. Wheedle. It's usually around information. Ooh, I'm going to add that one. Information, right? Let me add my web stick. All right. So we have another video that I'd like to show you. This one is 7 minutes long.
Pool Chronicles.
Oh, that's the same one.
We want to show you what vernal pools are and how they are different from other freshwater wetlands.
There we go. All right, it's the middle one I wanted to play. I knew 7 minutes sounded kind of long. This one is only 3.5 minutes.
These are probably, I'd say, at least a week old. Larvae are a little bit more developed in there.
Herpetologist Charlie Eichelberger is holding up.
Oh, don't do this to me.
Is holding up a mass of eggs from a Jefferson salamander, one of several animals that depend on temporary wetlands called vernal pools to survive. I'm Jorge Rivas for Discovery News, and I'm standing actually inside of a vernal pool, which is sort of the oasis of the forest. Every spring they fill up with melting snow and rainwater, then just as quickly dry up in the hot summer months.
In this area, we had about 40 inches of snow in February, so these pools are really overflowing with water this year.
On this chilly March afternoon, we're on the hunt for salamanders. We find a red-spotted newt and some red-backed salamanders, but none of the spotted, marbled, or Jefferson salamanders that inhabit the pools. Plenty of their eggs, though. When will these eggs hatch?
Anywhere from a few weeks to
No, why is it doing this?
A couple months. The goal for the salamanders is to get out onto land before the pool dries.
It's that drying period that's a key characteristic of vernal pools.
When it dries down, it excludes any fish populations that might have come in. And those conditions make it prime habitat for developing larval salamanders and frogs and toads that are specialized to use this type of wetland.
Invertebrates like fairy shrimp also thrive here, kind of a freshwater equivalent of sea monkeys.
They're not in the same family, but they're a crustacean. At the end of the season, whoever's in here lays that desiccant-resistant, freeze-resistant egg, and it needs to get dried out before it'll respond to the flooding in the spring, and then it'll hatch.
Why and where vernal pools form vary from region to region. Here, clay and other tightly packed soils keep water from draining too quickly. While development, pollution, and climate change all pose serious threats to the health of these ecosystems, the biggest challenge to their protection may be their temporary nature.
Some of them show up so quickly and disappear so quickly that people don't even realize that they are vernal pools. The landowners oftentimes fill the pools up because they don't realize that they are a wetland.
People who don't know what's living here see this and say, oh, it's just like a gross mosquito pond.
Right.
So how do you get people excited to and say, no, this is something worth saving?
The whole reason I'm doing what I'm doing is because a high school biology teacher of mine showed me photographs of all the cool life that's in these pools and actually took me out to one, and that got me hooked right from the get-go.
Just like Mrs. Tibbets.
So I try to do that as much as I can and let people know what unique habitats these are. If you're not out here at the right time of year, on the right night, in the worst weather, you're not going to really see a lot of these amphibians. They're very secretive, but if you get it just in the right conditions, it's really something else to see all these mass migration of amphibians coming here and listening to the frogs calling, and they're really spectacular places.
From Kings Gap State Park near Carlisle, Pennsylvania, for Discovery News, I'm Jorge Rivas.
That one gave us quite a few of the critters that live in a vernal pool. I like that one. All right, let's go back to our Jamboard, and we're going to go on to the next vocabulary word. The next vocabulary word is undergrowth. And undergrowth is on page 218. So let me flip to page 218. Should be 16 and 17 here. 216, 217, and 218. So 218, it's the last one. So it's undergrowth. First one to find it wins. You don't really win, but you know what I mean. Undergrowth, undergrowth, undergrowth. I found it. It's right here. Undergrowth. So it says, Ben and Mrs. Tibbets watch them until they disappear into the undergrowth. So what are some words that are related to undergrowth? Well, I see the word under, and I see the word growth. And the word growth looks a lot like grow. And since they're outside, I can guess that they're probably talking about plants. And the undergrowth, under might mean bottom, or it might mean hidden since it's undergrowth. And also, I'm wondering if undergrowth means new, because if it's starting and it's very small, I wonder if it means that it is new growth. Undergrowth can mean it can contain leaves. Undergrowth is usually in the forest. Because I watched that video, I know that moss grows in the undergrowth. I know that the undergrowth can provide protection for the critters that live in the vernal pool. Undergrowth might also have dirt involved. Undergrowth could also have, or also mean beneath. Spell it right? It's not giving me a red line. I think it might be okay. Beneath. And so now I'm going to add lines to all of these. And I want you to start thinking of opposites of undergrowth. Opposites. What is undergrowth not? Now it says growth, so be careful. Undergrowth is not, let me make my box over here of opposites. Undergrowth is not dead things like leaves or sticks, twigs. Undergrowth is not above. Undergrowth is not first. Undergrowth is not on top, right? Those are all opposites. So let me get rid of this, maybe, because that's where we're going to put our sentence at the end. We're going to do 4 vocabulary words. We've got 1 video left. There we go. That's where we're going to put our sentence. What type of word is undergrowth? Undergrowth, is it a person, place, or thing? Yes, it's a place, right? It's under the old stuff and it's about to come up. It's the undergrowth, what's growing on the bottom of the forest floor. So it is a noun, if I could spell noun correctly. Noun. And we only really have one other variation, and it would be undergrowths. And that's if you're talking about 2 different habitats. But undergrowthing is not a word. Undergrowthed is not a word. Just undergrowths, and it can be plural. And then we can use it in this sentence. When I looked in the undergrowth, I saw a salamander. Well, I did not spell salamander right. Salamander. Almost sound for sound. And now I want to stretch that out a little bit. I think that's a pretty good sentence. Undergrowth is also a compound word, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Hopefully you have heard compound words. All right, let's do another one. We're going to go back to chapter 17. Yesterday's 2 days ago. 17, we're going to go to 195, and on page 195 we're going to look for the word treading. So let's go back. Hopefully my internet will keep up for this. It seems to be quite spotty. We needed page 195. Oh, we got to go back quite a ways. And it's getting dark outside. I'm sitting out on my porch. I recorded this at night. We there yet? We there yet, Mom? Are we there yet? There we go. Page 195 should be on the right. And we are looking for the word, I've already forgotten, treading. Okay, we're looking for the word treading. First one to find it wins. Uh-oh, I'm not seeing it. Okay. Oh, I see it. It's at the very top, right here. Treading. It's always wetter in the spring, the real estate agent says, treading carefully to avoid getting mud on her shiny shoes. Remember how I said I thought she was maybe wearing high heels. So treading carefully to avoid getting mud on her shiny shoes. So what does treading mean? I'm going to put walking slowly. I'm going to put moving. I'm going to put stepping. I'm going to put foot down. I'm going to put treading isn't really a stomping, depending on how she's moving. I'm going to put forward. I guess you could tread backwards, but forward. I'm going to put I put stepping. I did put stepping. Moving, I got. Treading. More words like treading could be, I said walking. Oh, I'm going to put slow. Oh, I have slow already. I'm going to put carefully. And I'm going to try to come up with one more for treading. Stroll. It's close. I'll take it. All right, so I'm going to put these up here. I want you to think of some opposites while I'm making these lines. Notice not every single word is going to have 50 million stems off of it, and that's okay. So I'm going to make my opposites here. And an opposite of treading might be standing, because you have to move, right? Another one might be running. Another one would be jumping. Oh, we could probably do this all day. Another one might be bouncing, right? Those would all be opposites. And some other variations on the word treading. It has a base word of tread, right? And, oh, you know what? I want to add shoes. Most people are wearing shoes when they're treading. And I'm going to put some variations down. So we have treaded, if it's past tense. Tread, if it's current. Treading, oh, we have treading already. Tread, T-R-E-A, sounds weird again if you say it over and over. Tread. And I think that's it. If you can think of any more, you can add them to your assignment. So there's some other variations. And then what kind of word is this? Now, Mrs., what was her name? Mrs., the real estate agent. I don't recall her name off the top of my head. Mrs. Garrett says right down here. Mrs. Garrett, the real estate agent, is treading carefully to avoid getting mud on her shiny shoes. So it's something that she's doing. A word that means doing is a verb. Whoops. I add that up there, and I'm going to make it nice and big. And then I'm going to put a new sentence, and I'm going to use a fictional character, so a fake person that I'm making up right now, and that person's name is going to be Barbara. Barbara was treading through the snow to get to her bus stop. So that means she is walking carefully, because you know there's always some ice under that snow, to get to her bus stop. All right, I have one more video, and then we will do our last vocabulary word, and then I've got a couple other slides. This one was really short, if I recall. 5 minutes, so a little bit shorter.
I'm Christopher Roskind, and I'm with Linear Middle School Eco Club, and today we're building a vernal pool.
They're building one.
A vernal pool is a type of wetland that is seasonal. It holds water, and you see water on the surface in the form of a small pond, but it only lasts for part of the year.
In German, actually, they call it a Himmelsteich, a pond from heaven. And the reason that they call it that is because it's not fed by streams usually or any other water sources, but by the rain that falls down from the sky.
We call them a vernal pool because vernal means spring, and it's in the springtime when these aquatic environments, these wetlands, are sort of the most full of water and teeming with all kinds of living organisms. Invertebrates, aquatic insects, amphibians. That's when they're sort of at their peak of activity. Every season, there's something different. They are dry meadowlands in the summer. They're these full aquatic realms in the winter. In spring, they festoon with wildflowers. So because they're different in every season, there is this whole ebb and flow of different animals and plants that's different in every season. This little tiny temporary pond in the forest, though it may only be the size of your living room, services a whole forest community on the the order of about 1 square mile. And so every common type of wildlife you could think of, deer and songbirds and raccoons, would be able to utilize that. A lot of animals in migration, like ducks, can use these as a stopover to rest and feed. And then there is amphibians. And without that little pond in this larger forest, that whole community of thousands of amphibians wouldn't be able to reproduce. So it's crucial for that whole community of amphibians to exist. Why are they important? Turns out salamanders are more essential to the stability of a whole forest than deer or songbirds are. And it's because they're situated in the middle of the food web. Amphibians are right here in the middle. All the critters that eat them are up here, but all the critters that they eat are down here. And the transfer of energy, say from insects through amphibians that eat them to larger predators like owls and hawks that eat the salamanders, is critical upon this group of critters. If all of those mid-level predators and prey, the salamanders, were removed, that whole forest ecosystem would collapse.
Vernal pools are special areas that often get built over. They're not recognized as anything important, so they could easily get taken over by houses or roads. It just looks like a puddle. So that's why we need to be really bringing them back. We've lost over 90% and probably a lot closer to 99% of vernal pool habitat in this area.
We're going to be digging out the first foot of soil. Then there's people carting the dirt away in wheelbarrows, and they have people raking leaves away so that we can extend the vernal pool a little bit.
I'm raking up leaves so we could put it back in a specific place to help the pool's environment.
And then we're going to pack down the soil. After that, the water should be able to sit on top of the soil.
Showing them that this is a watershed right here. You have a wetland right here next to the school, and the school was built on a wetland. They can make the connection.
The vernal pool, it should last for as long as Cutner Park does, which hopefully a couple more centuries.
The high school biology teacher started a program, and with his high school students, they learned to identify vernal pools. They learned to collect that data in a systematic fashion and inventory formally each and every vernal pool they could find in their neighborhood of Reading, Massachusetts. They submitted the information, and then the state protected over 10,000 vernal pools. And most other states, whether it's in New England or down here in the South or out in California, that have turned their attention to these types of wetlands, they have followed the model of what was started by high school students in Massachusetts. But that's the magic.
How cool is that? So that was a video of kids just like Ben that were trying to save the vernal pools, and they were successful. So that was middle school. That was just a little bit older than you guys. All right, we have one more vocabulary word, and this is on page 203. So let me go to page 203. We're going to be looking for the word skitter. 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 Sounds like Skittles, but I didn't remember reading about any Skittles. Skitters. 203. 97. This should be 98, 99. 200, 201. 202, 203. All right, we are looking for skitters. Skitters. Oh, skitter. I already see it. It's up at the top here. Right here, skitter. Right inside that red circle. So they're all carrying supplies for the expedition, and Jenny's got her camera slung around her neck. Ryan drops the plastic containers he's carrying, and they skitter across the trail. Ben and Jenny help them pick up. So we're talking about the plastic containers. They skitter across the trail. So what does the word skitter mean? The plastic containers skitter across the trail. Fall, spread out, drop, move, That should help us with what type of word it is. Skitter. Animals can also skitter. Slide. I guess if it's on ice, it would be slip. Skitter. Moving, it would be moving kind of jaggedly because they wouldn't move in a uniform way. Skitter could also mean to get out because they got out of Ben's hand, right? So I'm going to add some lines. Think of some opposite words. I know you can't add them because this is a recorded lesson, but you can be thinking of them. And some, put my 2 boxes over here. Excuse me. My opposite words could mean together, held, uniformed. Uniformed all means all together, and move smoothly. Okay, and then some words that are use the same base would be skitter, skitterine, skitters. Past tense would be skittered. And then what type of word is it? Remember I said use the word move. It is a verb. It's how something is done. In this case, it was how the plastic containers moved. It can also be how a person or you might skitter if you're playing hide and seek because you don't want to be seen. And then I'm going to create a sentence off of it. So the sentence I'm going to write is going to be, the mouse tried to skitter out of the kitchen, but Mom, I need a comma, but Mom saw it. Oh man, can you hear already? Mouse, can you believe it? There we go. I like the size of that one. All right, we have a few slides left, so let's complete them up. We have this idea of compound words. So a compound word that we read on the first page of chapter 18 was mouthpiece. And let me see if I can get to chapter 18. Chapter 17 was pretty long. Chapter 18, where are you, chapter 18? Here we go. That's the end of chapter 17 and 18. So Ben answers the phone. He holds his hand over the mouthpiece for a second and says, so life's not fair. So we have a compound word here, and that compound word is mouthpiece. We have 2 parts to it. We have mouth and we have piece. So your mouth, is made of those beautiful things we call lips. There's my lips. And a piece is just part of something. So when we put these 2 together, it means part of something for the mouth. Now it can be the mouthpiece of a phone, like the phone in my classroom. Cell phones don't really have a mouthpiece. Or it could be a mouthpiece that you put in your mouth when you're playing a sport like football to protect your teeth. It's a piece of equipment that goes in your mouth or is related to your mouth. Okay? On page 215, there is another compound word, and it is below the yellow line. See if you can find it. That word is driveway. Now, driveway is another compound word. It is 2 smaller words put together. Those smaller words are drive and way. Now, we break them up, and a car goes on the driveway. So it would be, forgive my horrible art on here. I'm drawing with my finger. So here's a car. And so you can move your car or drive on that path. And this word way here means a path. And so I'm going to do like a road. So it is a place where the car can go. Right? Pretty easy. All right, we have another compound word. We have 2 more compound words. There is a compound word in this paragraph, and there is a compound word down in this paragraph. See if you can find the one on the on the top paragraph up here first. Now, we already had this word. It is undersides. Undersides. Now, we have two parts to this word. We have under and we have sides. If we go to under, it means beneath something. So I drew a line there and I'm drawing some scribbles underneath. And then a side is one part of something. So if I have a book, I have a left side and a right side. So side is part of one. So an underside just means underneath or below. Okay. Then the other compound word was down in the second part, and I see it. It is rattlesnake. Now, this one is actually quite fun for me. Let me move that up a little bit, and I will use yellow for rattle, and I'll use red for snake. This just means a snake that has a rattle, and a snake's rattle looks like this. Kind of. Oh, that's such a terrible picture. But it's on the end of its tail and it shakes it back and forth and it has these little organic beads inside that go. So it's just a snake that has a rattle. All right, and our last one. I wanted to talk about Greek and Latin roots. And all I want you to do is listen to these. For the live lesson, we will have thought of some other words for some of them. So if I look at the word technical, I'm going to get my highlighter out. I see tech. Tech means skill. So I'm going to put that here, and it's going to be a little bit smaller. But tech means skill. Now, technical would mean that somebody is full of skill or a skill is applied to something. Okay, then we have the word central and we have C-E-N-T. That is the root that means central. S-E-N-T-R is central, so in the middle. In the middle of something. So if the vernal pool is central in the forest, that means it's in the middle of the forest. So I'll circle that. Then we have terrarium, T-E-R-R, means land. And so if we have a terrarium, that means it is a habitat of land for an animal. Now, if we said aquarium, that would mean water. So we have land. Now, another word that has T-E-R-R in it that I can think of off the top of my head is terraform. That means to change the land. We still have T-E-R-R there. Now, the next one is incredible, and the root is C-R-E-D, and C-R-E-D means believe. If something is incredible, it's almost hard to believe, right? And then we have construction. The root for construction is S-T-R-U-C-T, which means build. And build, construct, and then the next one and I'm going through these kind of fast. I apologize, but I just want you to hear them. I'm not going to test you on them right now, but P-E-D means foot. So we have pedal, which means like if you were to Ben pedals his bike, it means foot. P-E-D. And we have two for the next one. We have, my next color is green. We have telly and we have phone. Telly means means far. So I have, telly means far. And then the other one is phone, which means hear. So you can hear somebody who is far away. Now, I could call somebody all the way in Russia, right? And I would be able to talk to them even though they are far away and across the ocean. I would be able to hear them thanks to the telephone, which is a wonderful piece of technology like this one up here. And the technology provides us with a skill. Another word that I can think of that has tele in it is teleport. That means like in science fiction books and movies, people can teleport to another dimension or another world. And then another one that I know of for phone is a phonograph. And a phonograph is something that plays music, so you would be able to hear it. And the last one, we have photo. And I need blue. And photo means light. Now, if you've ever seen a camera get used in the dark, you know that it needs to have light. It has a flash. And so light, photograph, means that we use light to put a picture on a piece of paper, and graph means write, so the paper comes in. All right, I just wanted you to hear those. You will see those again in the future. You will not be tested on them right now. All right, I hope you enjoyed Night of the Spadefoot Toads and that you have gained a little bit of knowledge. I would like you to think really hard for the assignment. Why was it so important to try to save the vernal pools?